In this video, I'm breaking down the top mistake that I see dog owners who are treating their dog separation anxiety. This is the top mistake I see them make. And it's something that I haven't talked about in any of my videos to date, and I'm pretty sure you haven't heard this anywhere else on YouTube. So if you're interested in hearing that top mistake that I see parents make treating separation anxiety, keep watching. What's up, guys? It's Jenna with Dog Liaison, where I coach you on how to treat your dog's mental health. I'm a professional dog trainer, and in my signature program, the Recovering Rover program, we coach parents on how to treat their dog's separation anxiety. And it is a topic that I have covered a lot on this channel, but this subject, the top mistake that I see dog owners make, I actually haven't mentioned yet in any of my videos, which blows my mind a little bit. Now, if after watching this video you're interested in deep diving on all of my separation anxiety material, make sure you check out this playlist right here. There are a lot of tutorials, tips, and tricks on separation anxiety. You can open that link in a new tab and get started. The top mistake that I see dog owners make when they're treating their dog's separation anxiety is that they are not separating their criteria. Here's what I mean. Criteria could be anything from like goodbye cues, for example, grabbing your keys, grabbing your shoes, walking to the door, locking the door, turning on the car. It could be anything of those goodbye cues. It could be also something more subtle, like changing the time of day that you're doing your missions. So for example, if you generally train in the evening, changing to the beginning of the day is going to be a big difference. It could be like incorporating more family members. So for example, you used to do missions simply with just you alone, and now you're incorporating your spouse or your kids. It could be a thing as simple as changing your dog's enrichment routine. So that could be that you are going for a longer walk versus a shorter walk. It could be that you are going to a different location that has more stimuli when before you were going to a location that had more of a safari opportunity. So it could be a matter that has nothing to do with the mission itself. It could be something that is entirely apart from it. But what ends up happening is people will accidentally blend their criteria. So for example, let's say today you decided to do your mission at 8 a.m. when you usually do it at 8 p.m. Plus, you decided to incorporate your kids into the mission when usually it's just you that does the mission in the evening. Plus, on top of that, you usually do a long walk at 9:30 a.m., but today you did a short walk at 7 a.m. So now this mission that you did this morning has incorporated 3 new variables. You changed the time of day, you changed it to the morning, you incorporated other family members, which usually you do by yourself, and you changed the enrichment routine. You went for a shorter walk at a different time of day. The problem is not changing the criteria. So the problem is not that you decided to change the time of day. For example, we need to make sure that you can walk out your door and do missions and be okay at leaving at different times of day. You shouldn't be confined into only leaving in the 8 p.m. And yeah, you also want to make sure you incorporate your kids into the mission. You want to make sure that practically your kids are able to leave with you in the future. Plus, yes, without a doubt, you want to make sure that you can change the enrichment routine. If your dog's success for his mission is solely dependent on the enrichment routine and it needs to happen at 9:30 for an hour, and if the second you deviate from that, all hell breaks loose, then my friend, yeah, you're right, something has gone wrong. So the problem is not changing the criteria. The problem is changing the criteria together. You're not separating them. So let me give you an example. When we were training with Lucy at Lucy Unleashed, we noticed that she was particularly stimulated by incorporating shoes. And so when we worked on incorporating shoes in that criteria, we were very mindful of all of the other criteria. We were very mindful of, okay, we're gonna make sure the window is closed all the time, and we're gonna make sure that we're training at approximately the same time of day, and we're gonna make sure that there aren't too many noise sensitivities. We're gonna make sure that her enrichment is pretty routine. So we controlled as many of the other variables as possible so that we could just focus on this one variable, which is adding in the shoes. Now, I do recommend you do this for about a week to 3 weeks per criteria. This isn't something that you do one day and it's proofed forever. You know, just because you had one successful mission on Tuesday with this doesn't mean that now you can start hopping and changing your criteria for the rest of the week. No. When you're treating separation anxiety, it's a very painfully slow recovery journey. And so really you're focusing on this one criteria, say incorporating tennis shoes, for a week to 3 weeks at a time before you jump into the new criteria. So I recommend prioritizing your criteria in whatever makes sense for you from an importance standpoint. So for example, if you know that you tend to do your missions at different times of day and that's an important part in your life because you know that you need to be able to do missions in the morning sometimes and in the afternoon other times, then that would be one of the first criteria that you desensitize. On the other hand, if you know that you're like, I need to do my training in the evenings every day, then that might be something that you maintain. That's a criteria that is consistent. You only do trainings from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night, and you're focusing on other things. Perhaps you're focusing on incorporating shoes. To be honest, shoes are one of the first things that I try to incorporate into the training because most people like to be outside with shoes on, right? Most people like to make sure that they're not burning their feet in Arizona like Lucy was. Or on the other hand, if you live in Chicago and it's snowing, you want to have boots on for that. That's definitely a criteria that we incorporate pretty soon. Perhaps you live where weather is a major factor. So like, for example, if you live in Seattle and you can't necessarily walk your dog when it's pouring down rain and you have to have enrichment inside the house, then you also want to make sure that your success is not dependent on getting those walks in every day, right? As we mentioned before, if changing the time of the walk or changing the length of the walk automatically changes all the variables in the success rate of your mission, something has gone wrong. And I really recommend that you check out this video, which explains and deep dives on what enrichment is so that you have a better understanding of how to incorporate and apply it to your dog at home. But enrichment plays a role. And so depending on how consistent your enrichment routine is, that can also affect the success, and that might be in a criteria you think of. Perhaps you're thinking about the amount of people you bring in. So for example, Penny in the RRP, she has a very good success rate when it's just dad leaving. She is pretty successful. She can handle, up to 10 minutes with dad leaving. But the second that we incorporate the kids into the mission, it's been a pretty painfully slow experience, if we're gonna be honest. She gets incredibly stressed, and it's something that we've been working on for several weeks to incorporate the kids with all of their goodbye cues, plus the shoes, plus locking the door, without sending Penny into a panic. So we do want to be mindful about how far apart our success is. So for example, Aska, who's in the Recovering Rover program, before they came to us, before they joined the RRP, they came to us and they said, we can do 20 minutes, 25 minutes with our dog alone, and everything's great, but we can't lock the door. The second we lock the door to our front house, we can't leave our dog for longer than 2 minutes before he's in a panic attack. Well, 20 minutes versus 2 minutes is a pretty substantial difference. And I don't see that as very practical, because when are you going to be leaving your house for longer than 10 minutes without locking the door? Like, that's just not gonna happen, right? So we wanna make sure that we're pretty practical about our criteria. And when a client comes to me and they say, yeah, if all of these conditions are in line, we can get 25 minutes and it's great. But the second we deviate from this, the second we decide to lock our front door, we get 2 minutes. That's a problem. So here's what you actually want to do. You want to be very mindful about how successful you're getting in this criteria. Say you start off by focusing on incorporating the shoes, but not locking the door for, say, 3 minutes. And that's just an arbitrary number. But let's say you get to 3 minutes where you can walk out the door with your shoes on, but not lock the door. You're gonna stop that progress. You're gonna deliberately stop about 3 minutes and not continue to kind of push that. Instead, you're gonna go back down to a minute, 2 minutes, but you're gonna incorporate locking the door. So you're gonna incorporate locking the door, and now that's at 3 minutes, right? Now you can handle 3 minutes of locking the door and having all of your goodbye cues. Then you're gonna incorporate a little bit more where, let's say you have changing the time of day. So you're gonna be able to have 3 minutes of locking the door in the evening, and that's really solid. And now you're gonna go back down and you're gonna say, okay, we're gonna lock the door at 2 minutes, but we're gonna change the time of day. So now we're inching that a little bit further. So you're doing this little dance where it's constantly leveling up and balancing each other out. You don't wanna have a very distinct difference where you have 25 minutes under this condition, but only 2 minutes under this condition. That can get yourself in a really impractical state. And this is honestly one of the reasons why the recovery journey for treating separation anxiety is so slow, especially in the beginning stages, because in the beginning stages, you're really just focusing on generalizing all of these different criteria and making sure you can make the mission as practical and realistic as possible before you focus on duration. In many cases, for many dogs, I would say, the duration is the least important part. How long you leave your dog isn't really important if you can't make it practical. If when you leave your dog, it's 30 minutes, great, but you're in socks and pajamas and you can only do it if it's at 7 p.m. after a 3-hour walk, and you have to make sure that the moon is set on the right side of the earth, like that's a problem. If it's so restricted, that's a problem. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hit like, consider subscribing for more nerdy content. If you're looking to help your dog separation anxiety, the next step is to binge this playlist. My friends, there are so many tutorials, so much help. If you're looking to learn more about enrichment, make sure you check out this video right here. Hit the subscribe button and I'll see you guys soon.